Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to this video on telling story, and I'd like to get right to it. I'd like to welcome my friend and former student, Roland Polzin, who's a graduate from the University of California, Irvine, the Merage School of Business. He graduated this year, and I think he's a great example of how to tell a story, how to engage, and so we're just going to get right to it. So Roland, the floor is yours. Give us a little introduction of yourself and your startup.
Sure. So I originally came from Germany, started my MBA in 2018, and as you just said, graduated this June. I always had the desire to start a company, and then finally on UCI campus, I met my co-founders, and my dream came true. So that's how it all happened. And right now, after a couple of iterations with what we did, we're currently offering a platform for businesses to connect them to remote assistance. So any smaller business that needs help with like tedious tasks can come to us. They outsource their labor, and then they focus on what really matters.
Great, wonderful. And the name of the startup is what?
Wing AI.
Wing AI, wonderful. And just for the folks watching, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn a little bit more about your
the best. Yeah, I'd say the best platform is probably LinkedIn. So right. Roland Polzin, just look for that, and I'll probably pop up.
Okay, awesome. We'll obviously tag you in the video on LinkedIn as well. So wonderful. So regarding Wing, and I did that previous post for the viewers to see the interview they did with you, and you talked about when you first launched Wing, or you were looking at investors. What was that process like? Were you telling a engaging story, or kind of what were you focused on? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, rhetoric question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Like in the beginning, it really didn't go that well because my co-founders and I were really just finding that fit for the story. And so what we did was, like, we had the story in our head, like where everything will go and how everything works. And of course, from that perspective, we had kind of this blind spot where we didn't realize that others didn't have some of the knowledge or assumptions that we had. And so what we did was really just hitting investors and advisors and other people and customers. You tell stories to all of them, right?
Right.
We were hitting them with like the basics. For example, back then we had a concierge app, and we would just tell them, hey, this is an app that can do anything for you, which is, like, in theory, amazing, but if that's all you hear, you don't really know anything, but what is it really, right? So, right. And that's how we started, and we didn't really get traction.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And the reason why I say this, because I think even though you were an MBA student, you studied strategy. Is that right? Was that your focus?
Correct, yeah.
And then, of course, I'm doing a February workshop for the analytics students, kind of two kind of separate, they're not necessarily working with startups, but some can tend to just focus all on the data, right? And just do a data dump to their client in the capstone without being able to tell an engaging story, or being clear on what their focus is, right? And maybe what the pain point they're trying to solve, which sounds like where you guys were. You were just kind of shotgun approach, and we can do everything. It has all the bells and whistles. So taking it from that maybe not well-crafted story, tell us a little bit about what's the story now that you're telling that's gotten engagement, that's gotten traction. Kind of share with us maybe some of the revelations or the process.
Absolutely. So the first thing we did is we explained how the idea really came to fruition, and how we got to the idea. And that really was rooted in our shared desire to have some sort of a personal Jarvis at our disposal.
Right.
So that basically that Iron Man character that can do anything for you, right?
Right.
And by using this metaphor, people really connected on a very personal level very easily. And by just saying, yeah, that's what we wanted, that was what we were looking for, and so we built it. That piece of that very short little piece of story opened the eyes of customers just as well as investors, because now they've understood, okay, well, it's someone or something that can help you that's powered by technology, right? And so that was the first part. And then the second part is to say, okay, who's it for, who can use it, and how can you use it? So give a couple examples and use cases to make it palpable for the people. And then on top, and that pertains more to investors, tell the story of where you will go, and how you will develop the business in the future. And really, I would say, like, as a advice for business analytics people, always take a step back, and think about, okay, if I didn't know what I do know, what would I have to say for someone else to understand it?
Great. And that's another point, because they might have in their capstone project a senior VP of marketing, and then they might have a doctorate in analytics, and the doctorate in analytics is eating it up. They're getting all the data points, and maybe the marketing person is like, what does this have to do with our client, right? So I love it. I think that's really good. And just one other question I had, just related to Jarvis. I love that idea of the metaphor. How was that different than just all the bells and whistles? Like you were saying, like that we're promising them the moon. But when you were talking about Jarvis, is it more of the concept that they understand whatever's in their immediate kind of world, it's doable? Is that kind of the difference between the Jarvis and your original story plot kind of?
Yeah, I would say so. Like in this example, and I would say on a more general level, if you like, what we did was telling people, okay, we can do anything. And then we went ahead and explained the technology.
Great.
And explained the market and how many people could use us potentially, which is all true, and which in my opinion are really the key issues here. But from an outsider perspective, and especially business people are by definition typically more generalists than experts in a certain field, especially data or whatever. And so you got to find something that resonates, right? And so by just figuring out and like straying away from like the technical details to more of the resonating part of what people can possibly relate to, which is, okay, Jarvis, many people have seen Iron Man, right? So they know what that is. Many people, if you go and talk about use cases and examples how to use it, people can instantly say, oh, well, that's something that I could use, or maybe even a family member could use.
Wonderful.
And so they can understand, okay, these are examples, and then they can go on that journey with you to explore, okay, what other things can there be, and how to use it in that sense.
Wonderful. Great. And I think that's the big thing of storytelling. It's a shared experience, right? Instead of it being a theory and it's out there, it deals with the practical. So wonderful. I knew that's why I wanted you on this interview, because you guys are doing a great work in getting your product out there. And it all begins with story, right? Being able to have that aha moment that I want my students currently who are working in analytics or even finance, accounting, being able to tell those stories that are for engagement. So finally, the kind of last part, just briefly want to have you share with us some of the best practices in presenting in the time of COVID. Maybe what tricks or tips would you offer up to the viewers today on how are you presenting on Zoom? How do you engaging? How do you winning the business, getting attention all virtually?
Yeah. So, I mean, the basic and most important thing really is, since you're two-dimensional, everything needs to be perfect in those four corners, right? And so have a good internet connection. Like, if you can, find the best Wi-Fi spot in the house or in wherever you are, so that the sound and the voice or the audio isn't lagging. And then make sure that your camera is well positioned, that your microphone works. And try to have a background that's kind of distracting. So what I'm trying here, I don't know if that works, but so video needs to be good, because that's all people see of you.
Right.
And then apart from that, I would say try to make a little small talk and have a conversation on a more personal level. Can start as like, where are you based? Like, what's the weather like where you are? Because everyone is usually at a different place, right? And so kind of get a conversation going. Doesn't really matter where, But the
Right.
key here is if you have some personal knowledge of the other person on the other end, you relate better, you have that foundation for a conversation, and you can actually go back perhaps in your story when you tell the story, you know something about the person, so you can pick that up and bring that back to really get that aha moment and say, okay, well, maybe that person just told me about I don't know, going to the movies and seeing Iron Man, so I can bring that. I mean,
Right.
that rarely happens, but just as an example, how you can pick that up and
Great.
weave that in.
Love it. And I love how you said if you are responsible for everything within those four corners. In terms of like your slide deck, I mean, I'm working with a client right now. It's a startup in environmentalism, working with fisheries with an engine that controls the buoyancy of a pen. And initially they were all static slides and really trying to help them tell the story and become more engaging. Have you guys changed at all your approach or slide deck or format, or is it just you're just tweaking it from the connection point?
Yeah, so I mean, the slide deck changes all the time and improves all the time. We're updating it with new data. We're also seeing what resonates, what doesn't resonate so well with investors or the feedback we get, and we adapt it. But I would say the general structure of the whole thing is not at all different than from it was before. So you can just go ahead and whatever template you have is probably good in COVID times as well. Just make sure that you get that feedback to improve it.
Great. Okay, wonderful. And one of the things that I'm trying to do more with some of my clients is shorter chunks of information, checking in, making sure if they have any questions or, specific questions, just so they're not zoning out, which you never know if they are.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah.
But great. But I love it. It sounds like you guys are doing a great job. Can you share briefly where you are right now and why that's significant to you?
Well, I'm currently in Berkeley in the Bay Area because we got accepted with Wing AI for the UC Berkeley Skydeck Accelerator. So we came up here, did the programming, which was about half a year long. And I'm right now contemplating going back to SoCal because it's super cold up here.
Right. Yeah, it gets a little chilly. So, well, congratulations. That's a huge thing, especially that's kind of one of the, holy grails in startups is Berkeley and obviously near Silicon Valley. So, well, thank you very much, Roland. This has been really enlightening. I hope the viewers enjoyed it. Everybody check out Wing, reach out to Roland on LinkedIn, give a like, give a comment on the video. Also, if any of you startup folks or even students who have graduated in analytics that have kind of best practices you'd like to share on storytelling or presenting, please reach out. I'd love to interview you. They're short videos. We'll probably break these up into smaller chunks. And just want to say thank you guys very much for watching. Again, thanks again to you, Roland, and all the best to you and Wing.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.